Welcome back, Federation family. You're watching us where we dive headfirst into the drama, the danger, and the deep space dilemmas of strange new worlds. And season 3 is already taking no prisoners. We're launching the new season with episode 1, Hegemony Part 2, the explosive conclusion to last season's jaw-dropping cliffhanger. The Gorn are back in full force, and Pike is faced with the impossible. Rescue his crew, save Captain Patel, and stop a threat that doesn't negotiate or understand mercy. With Chapel stranded, La'an on a knife's edge, and the return of Montgomery Scott, this episode is Star Trek at its most intense. Brace yourself for ship-to-ship combat, tactical gambles, and an ending that might redefine how the Federation deals with an unknowable enemy. Let's break it down. Hell yeah! Thank you for joining us again.
Glad to be here as a neophyte turkey.
All right, good. So there's no reason for us to break down Hegemony. We did that the last time. So let's get straight into it. All right. So how does Pike's decision in the final act of the episode reflect his evolution as a leader under extreme pressure? Your thoughts?
So I'm starting to fall in love with Pike again. He pissed me off. I'm gonna let it go. But I do like how he leaned and trusted his team. So that's part of being a good leader, is knowing that you have the right people in place when times get tough, that you aren't going to have all of the answers, to kind of relinquish a little bit of that control and allow people to function in their roles and their specializations. And so I think that went really well. So as a leader, I think he showed up quite well for his team simply by trusting them. And all in all, with all our powers combined, we arrived at a solution, and it wasn't unilateral.
Okay. All right. I love it. All right. So as you were talking, I was rereading my question. I was like, oh, this might get her stumped. But this is what I'm going to preface my question by saying this. For all intents and purposes, you've seen everything that anyone in the Star Trek fandom has ever seen about the Gorn, except for one episode. Okay. So you know more than most people who might have seen it all the way back in the 60s. Okay, so with that being said, what new tactics does the crew use, and you alluded to it, to fight the Gorn, and how does this expand the Gorn mythology in the Trek universe?
Woo. Okay, so they have been, first of all, part of it was leaning on the crew's specializations. You have your scientists, you have your different people that do different things as it pertains to Starfleet. So there's that piece. And then they've been studying the Gorn, so much so that they've uncovered their hibernation cycles and kind of how they move through those pieces. So I think that staying diligent and not saying, hey, the Gorn's not a threat right now, so we can kind of just relax, they've been on it. So I love that they uncovered that piece. Like, okay, maybe we might not be able to take them out. We'll know how to better face them because they aren't going anywhere, or at least they don't seem to be going anywhere.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So were there any consequences from Pike defying Starfleet orders, and what might that mean going forward? Now, this is like a hypothetical, right? So consequences from Pike defying Starfleet orders.
So you mean, for me, consequences can be positive and consequences can be negative. And so I think, him going head on with April, like, hey, all right, I don't agree with you, although I'm supposed to follow your orders. I think there were good consequences. And I love the fact that rather than being in a pissing match with April kind of conceded a little bit and was like, hey, unofficially, this. And so other than him being fine as hell, that made me fall in love with him as a leader, because it's like, okay, I can give you this professional answer all day long, but off the record, hey. So I think there were good consequences to him overall defying what Starfleet actually wanted them to do. And ultimately, they saved everybody's asses in the end.
Right, right. You know what? It reminded me, and I'm trying to like keep my thoughts focused on things that you have seen so far. So, what's the name of it? Ad Astra per Aspera.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right. So I was reflecting about that, and I was just like, you know what? Basically, what they're saying is Starfleet captains have latitude. And I wonder if what this was saying, because, for all intents and purposes, this was the second Starfleet captain. And for all intents and purposes, what they're basically saying is, hey, if you want to be a Starfleet captain, you've got to know when to bend the rules.
Agreed.
Is that so? Okay, so you follow that logic?
100%. Because again, ultimately, you can follow the rules, but you're facing a threat like you've never faced before. And so trying to approach it, and being super diplomatic isn't always going to get you the intended result. And you really could have, lost more lives than you anticipated. So I'm glad that he was able to, and he being Pike was able to push back and say, hey, wait a minute. They're probably going to pass the demarcation line anyway and just attack you. So, you can play passive if you want, but it's going to be too late. They already gone, have been attacked by the time you decide, hey, let's come up with a plan.
So for all intents and purposes, Starfleet officers were in captivity. Not true captivity, but for all intents and purposes, they were in captivity. Do you feel it might have changed their view of Starfleet or the Federation's role in interspecies conflict?
It's a little different when you trapped inside the belly of the beast, quite literally. So 100%. And I'm interested to see how Ortega's is going to come out on the other side of this, because it seems as though, on the one hand, and I know I'm kind of going off a little bit, on the one hand, it's making her want to have more fight, but then on the other side, you see that fear in her, that unrest. And so I'm interested to see how this is going to affect her, as the pilot.
So in Hegemony Part 1, we saw the scene with Spock and Chapel. How do their choices walk the line between healing and harm in Hegemony Part 2?
Ooh. They're in this constant revolving door / limbo. And so it does toe the line between healing and harm, simply because they have so many unresolved issues between the two of them. And then all the while you have life and death hanging in the balance of everybody around them. So you have, Spock, who's not supposed to have all of these emotions, but obviously he has already deviated from being Vulcan so much. And so if you can't focus on the work, people can lose their lives. And so with Chapel, she kind of pissed me off just a little bit, but that's not in Hegemony. In Wedding Bell Blues, she kind of pissed me off a little bit. We'll get there. But yeah, Spock's focus is a bit off. They ultimately do kind of pull it together, though. Mm-hmm. Unethical. Spock, you're not a doctor, but you Vulcan.
So that makes you qualified to help Chapel.
Right. So they pull it off. But again, even with me saying, it's extremely dangerous and unethical, it worked out because, she was missing Mbinga. Mm-hmm. He wasn't there. So it was a dangerous situation. It could have went really, really left because of all that tension between the two of them.
Yeah. So La'an's trauma is, again, at the forefront. How does she channel or overcome it during this mission?
I gotta get an Mbinga t-shirt, because honestly, like on the cool, he really is that quiet voice of reason, kind of nudging a person and kind of keeping them grounded. So I think him being there was very helpful, but at the same time, La'an, she so desperately wants to destroy the Gorn. She's having these flashbacks and this trauma and PTSD, really. But she pulls it together ultimately for the greater goods, because it's like, I will be damned if the Gorn win. So she's struggling a bit, but she's working through it. But Mbinga all day. Mbinga.
Speaking of Mbinga, you said a t-shirt. I want the Mbinga bodysuit. And I want it flesh tone. I want it to wrap around my body, all parts.
Well, don't we all? Yes, indeed.
So let's talk about Montgomery Scott. In Hegemony Part 1, we saw that Montgomery Scott was Johnny on the spot. He had the plan, right? And then all of a sudden in Hegemony Part 2, we saw a different Montgomery Scott. How does his character build on legacy while still feeling fresh?
I don't know that I can directly answer that question, but I'm going to say this. You got Pelia, a former professor who used to pretty much tie your balls in the knot, standing over you. I think he had a little bit of performance anxiety.
Flaccid.
Yes, you got Pelia with that voice over you, basically telling you that you get an Asian F, which is really just an A-. But that's, I think it sounds bad. I don't want you to choke on your Canada Dry, but I really think he had a little bit of performance anxiety because of Pelia. And so aside from Pelia and all her quirks and being the professor, there was just so much happening. So under pressure, that level of pressure is a lot for anybody. So I didn't answer the question that you asked, but
well, no, you did. Basically, what you're saying is because his former professor was there, it made him like second guess himself.
Yes, a more concise version, other than the performance anxiety, the ED.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing. All right, we touched on it earlier when we were talking about nasty ass.
Okay.
We touched on it together.
This is why we need other people as a buffer, because this will keep going.
How does Spock's emotional state, especially following season 2, affect his performance during this mission?
Well, okay, let me get serious. So Spock, again, he's very tender because he's still in a weird place with Chapel. And so at a time where you shouldn't be thinking about your emotions at all, you want to try to have a serious conversation. Like, hey, I hate the way that we left things. So he's becoming less and less Vulcan as the episodes continue. Now, don't get me wrong. It's Spock all day. Spock can do no wrong. I'm going to always give him a rope and bail him out. But yeah, he's letting his humanity show quite a bit. And so that's the development, or if you want to say regression, because being human sucks, that I'm seeing from Spock, just becoming more and more human.
Gotcha. All right. So I believe that's about it. Well, you know what? Before we do that, from Mayfair to 10, rank Hegemony Part 2.
From Mayfair to 10, honestly, Hegemony for me is probably going to be about an 8. And I didn't hate the episode. It wasn't my favorite. Didn't appreciate that damn cliffhanger from season 2. And so as an opener for season 3, it wasn't the worst because it was a lot going on, lots of action. And so for me, it was about an 8.
Okay. For me, so I told you before, I did not enjoy it the first time that I watched it. Second time that I watched it, I enjoyed it more. It received a bump because I watched it a second time. First time, I would have given it about a 5. Second time, it's a 7.
Okay.
So that's where I land. All right, so let's move to Wedding Bell Blues. This is a little intro. After surviving Gorn-infested chaos, we're back with episode 2, Wedding Bell Blues. And if you're expecting phases or intergalactic threats, well, you get none of that. It's love, laughter, and laser-sharp tension at the heart of the galaxy. This episode gives us something rare in Star Trek, a full-blown space wedding, when a Starfleet nurse and a civilian scientist tie the knot, or try to at least. Chaos, comedy, and awkward confessions ensue, especially when crew members unexpectedly get pulled into the ceremony. Expect unexpected romances, unresolved feelings, and one intergalactic wedding scene you'll never forget. Let's unpack the love, the drama, and the chaos that somehow all come together in Wedding Bell Blues. Hell yeah. Do you want to talk about the title, Wedding Bell Blues?
Oh my goodness. An oxymoron in the title. Oh my God, Wedding Bell Blues. When you think of wedding, joy, excitement, this was so quirky. And even to use the term that they use in this show a lot, hijinks. It's just very, very quirky. And so you have this wedding that's supposed to be exciting, but all the while, someone in the background is very upset because he's very aware of what's going on, and no one else is. They are under this kind of spell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, what unexpected crisis, and you alluded to it, interrupts the marriage to be, and how does it test Spock's love for Chapel?
So, Chapel's boyfriend, who was sprung upon these people for the gala that was supposed to be a gala that turned into being a wedding. After Spock kind of drinks this liquid by this trickster, everybody is under this kind of trance, basically, or spell or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the doctor, Chapel's boyfriend, is the only one that is aware of what is happening. And so I cannot remember verbatim the question that you just asked, but revisit the question for me, because I feel like I was about to go off in 50 million directions.
What unexpected crisis interrupts the marriage to be, and how does it test Spock's love for Chapel?
Yes. So the doctor stands up and basically objects to the nuptials. And so he reveals to Spock what's happening. So he kind of becomes aware of what's happening. And then it's so many things happening at the same time, because you have the trickster that's threatening to basically kill everybody if the wedding doesn't go off. So I feel like Spock is even though he's threatening to kill everybody, the trickster, I don't even know if they gave him a name. It doesn't feel as quite as a serious threat as the other things they faced. So I don't know. I feel like Spock would have probably gone through with it, but maybe felt a little guilty. And then, of course, the disruption from Chapel's boyfriend kind of puts things into perspective. So, again, Spock's humanity being shown quite a bit in this episode. I would have loved to see them get married. The drama.
The drama of it all. Yes.
And real quick, as a quick aside, the fashion, the outfits, the wedding, it was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. I loved it. Mm-hmm. I love what they did with it.
Good. All right. So, how does this episode use humor and romance to explore interpersonal dynamics that are usually kept under wraps? And before you answer, let me just say with this particular show, humor is front and center as opposed to most other Star Trek franchises. I just want to say that.
I think the lightheartedness kind of helps the story move along quite a bit for me, and some of it because I mean, off the back of Hegemony Part 2, there was so much, it was so serious. And then, so to me, this episode was kind of refreshing. And so, having the humor married into this um makes it more palatable, even though, matters of the heart are nowhere near funny. You're able to kind of get a break from some of the seriousness and just kind of laugh it off and keep moving.
Okay. So Spock's speech at the ceremony hints at unresolved feelings about love. How does that affect the choice to end the wedding?
I'm going to simply say he doesn't want it if it's not genuine. And if he loves Chapel so much that, okay, I could have gone through with this, but to what end? Like, I don't want you to be with me when you're under a trance. I want it to be your own free will. And clearly you brought your man to the gala. So you're trying to move on, even though you're still kind of confused. And so that speaks to Spock's not just humanity, but just overall wanting to be a good person or a good Vulcan or whatever.
Yeah. So this is probably something that you cannot answer. And so I'm going to ask this question, and the question is for me. So a godlike being is playing Cupid. For those of you who can recognize Cupid's father's voice, it calls into question whether Enterprise D was the first Enterprise to run into Q. And so Cupid's father, right? The voice of Cupid's father. We know that to be Q. Q is some omnipotent being who played tricks on Starfleet, or I should say Star Trek crews in later series, or maybe past series, depending on how you're watching this. Okay, and so understanding that, my wonder was basically this: was this the precursor to Q or not? And I know you don't necessarily have the answer to that, but I don't have the answer to it, but it begs the question. It begs the question if this was the precursor to Q. And so, like, I'm really interested in what fans of Star Trek think here. Next question. Which crew member surprises you most in this emotionally open episode?
Uhura. Uhura was flirting down with Ortega's brother. She's surprised. First of all, they've been to some degree effing over her hair. And I still didn't absolutely love what they did with it, but I'm glad that they did something different for her. And so she was like way more vibrant and playful and everything in this episode. And I'm like, you better get you some, girl. Are we going to see a sex scene from her? So she really surprised me at her openness, her vulnerability. Like, she was ready. She was so ready. And so she really, really shocked the hell out of me in this episode. She did.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question. How does Uhura navigate this unexpected love interest?
She navigates it by being extremely open. Like, so instead of trying to hide it from Erica, she's openly flirting in front of her. So I loved it.
I really loved it for her character, because that was definitely not anything that we saw in the original Star Trek. And so to see all of that play, anything that they do with her character is amazing to see, because in the original, I mean, she was just kind of there. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was just, this ship is saying this and yada, yada, yada. There wasn't much to her. There were a couple episodes where they did use her, But it was, I mean, it wasn't the type of thing where they expanded on who she is as a character. But in this show, they do a great deal with her particular character, and I'm loving everything that they do with her character. She has one of those legacy characters, and they're building upon the legacy that she had.
You love everything that they do with her except for her hair, because I remember you saying that she had the big hair in the past and they just did not deliver it. So everything but that.
But I like it. I like it. I like it in this. What I don't like is that her hair grew that long in 3 months. That don't make no sense.
As a Black woman, it don't take 3 months. Go get what you need. They at ports. Let my girl be great. She said she popping out. Okay, she might get some color next time. You don't know.
But it was clear in Hegemony Part 2, her hair had gotten a little longer, even though it was like, it was clear that her hair was longer, but
still got what you needed. But and you know who else surprised me?
What's that?
I'm gonna say it again. That damn Dr. Chapel pissed me off.
What happened?
You to bring that man up there.
Oh.
That shocked me. I was like, I saw it coming the way they were setting it up, so I figured it out fairly swiftly. But yeah, that surprised me. That after all of that, this is what you gonna do? And it's like, okay. In real life, I'm only that biased because it's Spock. Because like, who finna keep playing these games? So I would probably did the same thing or worse. But just because it's Spock, I feel like you wrong for that.
Can I just say this? I'm gonna say this. When Spock and Dr. Corby were walking out of, I think it was Spock's quarters. Spock stopped at like his door when the trickster was like walking in, and so we saw like a side view of Spock, and all I saw was that ass. What?
Spock is fine. He's real fine. Yes.
Man.
Come here, Spock. Let me whisper something to you.
and you know what? They're not shying. Like, they want to show us all of Spock's goods, because we saw the chest, we saw all of that. And I'm like, oh man, I ain't seen that in a couple seasons. Then they whipped out that ass. I was like, come on.
It was worth the wait.
Ooh. I'm trying to tell you. Mayfair to 10.
Mayfair to 10. Honestly, this one is probably around an 8 for me too. I love the lightheartedness. I was here for the drama and the mess in this episode. It was messy, but it was funny. And like I said, as far as like the fashion, seeing everybody out of uniform, and then they gave Uhura some sort of love interest. So there were several components of the episode that I liked. It had a good flow. So for me, it's still around an 8, not a 10. Still not my favorite episode, but still a good episode.
Okay. For me, 7. It was just, I don't know. I can't even put my finger on it. It was just it. However, I will say this. I like the fact, even though it precedes the original show, it did a really good job of explaining how it was so clear that Spock had an interest for Chapel, and it was clear to everyone that Chapel had an interest for Spock. So if you watch the original, like it helps to explain that and why Spock never entertained Chapel. He never entertained. In the original, he didn't entertain her. It was like, I know what you're doing. I know how you feel, but we're not going now. And this episode helps to explain all of that. And so I thought that was good. It's still a 7 because it was just it was a lot going on. It was a lot going on, and I felt like 3 months after the Gorn, they could have been doing something else.
Look, y'all out here playing. That's fair. It's not Mayfair, but it's fair.
It's not who fair.
It's not Mayfair, but it's fair.
It's much better than Mayfair. Much better. Thank you all so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and share on all your social media. Until next time, y'all have a good one. Peace and long life.